And we are up and running. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are today. So we are joined today on this episode of the podcast by none other than TeamTBC Catherine Hodgekinson. She is currently in the UK, over in Ascot, I believe.
Yeah.
Welcome, Catherine.
Hello.
So a little bit about Catherine. I'm going to let her introduce herself. She joined the team back in 2022, I believe, in December. She got a pro card in her first WBFF show in 2023, and recently has just come out of the first pro show with the FMG in London, which was a crazy, ridiculously fun and impressive show. So first and foremost, I kind of wanted you to introduce yourself in terms of where you are, what you do. If you don't mind sharing your age, that'd be great. I know the listeners would love to hear it. And yeah, let's go from there.
So yeah, I'm Catherine. I live in Ascot. I'm 29 years old. I've lived here for most of my life, actually. I lived a couple of years actually in America when I was younger, but I've spent the majority of my life in the UK, actually. So yeah, I work in sales. I'm funnily enough not a PT, so it just shows you can compete and have a full-time job and still do well and progress in your career and in your fitness life, as well as having a full-time job.
Yeah, 100%. And you are busy. You are, and I believe you run a team in sales, right?
Yes, yeah. I have a small team of people, so yeah, no, it's busy, but yeah, no, really enjoy it. So yeah, fitness is definitely my hobby that I have outside of work, but yeah, I absolutely love it.
How long has fitness been a hobby outside of work?
I mean, I've had fitness in my life from a young age, to be honest. My parents have always been very sporty themselves, and they've kind of always got me into sports as a young child. And I actually competed in dance from around the age of 9 to about 20. So I've always had a very competitive and sporty background. So yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, because obviously I know your story and I want you to tell it to everyone else, you were very much into fitness. And when I say fitness, I mean kind of like cardiovascular fitness. I believe you were quite a cardio bunny back in the day.
Yeah, so when I initially joined the gym, I had no idea what to do in the weight section. So I kind of resorted to going into doing classes, which were great. So I did all the pump and the step workouts and the boxercise. And, you know, I had an instructor telling me what to do and I felt very confident in there. And yeah, I was mad on doing classes. And often they would run back to back in the morning and I'd kind of do like 2 or 3 classes kind of back to back. And
wow.
I felt like, you know, if I hadn't sweated or my heart rate didn't go up, then I hadn't had a good workout. So I often did like quite a few classes just to kind of get a really good workout in.
And this was prior to strength training. Did you do any kind of strength training back then?
No. So when I first joined the gym, I had no idea about strength training. Yeah, I was purely going in there, just doing classes. I always had like a vision of I always loved what strong women look like and things like that, but I didn't know how to achieve this. I kind of thought doing classes and cardio was the way to look like that. And yeah, I had no idea that kind of weight training was the secret to this.
So what pushed you into deciding to get it? Was it someone giving you advice and saying, you know, this is the path you need to take? Was it you looking into, for example, like through social media saying, okay, these are the people I look up to. This is what they're doing. So I'm going to start doing this.
Yeah, a mixture of both, really. I did kind of follow a few guys on Instagram that I really aspired to, and they were kind of doing things in the gym and doing lots of cardio and things. And I thought, oh, this is what I need to do. But also PTs in the gym, they kind of approached me, they advised me that you need to switch to possibly doing some weight training, and this is how you're going to achieve, you know, things that you see on social media.
So you were kind of like pushed, I don't want to say pushed into it, but I guess a little bit of lacking information in terms of what you actually need to do. The people that you followed, you saw were doing kind of cardiovascular training and stuff like that, a lot of like probably elliptical stairmaster and stuff like that, and you kind of thought that was the way you go. What back then, what in your mind, in terms of aesthetics, did you want to achieve in the gym?
It's not much different to what it was now, to be honest. I saw girls that had, you know, abs, they had good set of legs, glutes, developed back, shoulders. To be honest, the visions never really changed for me in terms of kind of how I wanted to see myself. I just had no idea what they were doing and how they were achieving that physique. And I did think doing HIIT workouts and elliptical and things were how you got abs and how you got shredded. That was the only way to do it and build muscle. So I didn't really have any idea of how they did it, really.
And in terms of nutrition back then, did you have much knowledge? Do you have much ethos? Did you follow a plan, or was it very much like eat less, move more kind of thing?
Definitely. It was very much, I didn't know what to eat, so I just didn't really eat much at all. Yeah, I probably have one good meal a day in the
Right.
evening. I had no idea what I was eating,
Can you
or
remember? Can you remember back in the day, kind of like, throwing back to that in terms of what a day would look like, for example, in
so
terms of food?
yeah. So yeah, wake up, have nothing to eat before my workout, which is
No, fasted
very
cardio
bad.
done.
Fasted cardio, and then I'd come back, probably have a tiny little spoonful of yogurt, sprinkling of granola. That would be it for the morning. For lunch, I'd probably have a piece of fruit. That was it. And then I'd have a good meal at dinner. I'd have chicken, rice, veg, just a normal meal in the evening with some carbohydrate. So
And some
yeah,
protein, some much
some
needed protein.
protein. I'd probably throw in a protein shake actually at lunchtime, but
Okay.
that was about it really. Yeah,
So
I
probably
just
averaging less than 60 grams of protein a day, probably.
yeah. No, I
Mm,
had I had no idea. I had no idea of what I needed to eat, but I just didn't know how much I needed to eat or
right.
when to eat it or how much to have. I just thought having less was better because if I had something, it might have been too much and I don't know, it would have changed what I look like and things like that. So I just kind of stuck to very basic, minimal food.
Mm. Yeah, I think a lot of women and men can resonate with that. Can you give me the idea of timelines? Was this like, you're 29 now? Was this early 20s or mid 20s?
Yeah, it was around early 20s. Yeah.
Okay. And for those of you, I'm just going to show you now, I'm going to put up a picture of Catherine post kind of like mid transition between Cardio Bunny, kind of before she started her strength career. Catherine, if you wouldn't mind getting a little bit deeper and, feel free to share as much as you wish, because one of the biggest things that we notice, and obviously, my story in terms of when I used to compete and what I suffered with binge eating and stuff like that and my relationship with food. Can you flash back to back then? I know we've had this conversation and I believe you felt like you didn't have a bad relationship with food back then, but it was just kind of like not educated, not understanding. Can you run me through your mindset around food and your relationship with food back then?
Yeah, like I didn't look at food as being the enemy or worrying, kind of thinking, oh, if I eat that.
Do you feel like it was just a lack of education, a
Yeah,
lack of
definitely.
knowledge, a lack of
Like,
people talking about that? Like there was a lot of talk about the training side and things like that, but no real understanding around the nutrition side of things.
yeah, and I think I saw a lot of if you want to add muscle and you want to build muscle, you need to eat a lot of this food. And I didn't know what foods to, how much and what quantities of the food
Got
to
it.
eat in order to do that. So I was like, oh, if I don't know how much of that to eat, so I'm not going to have it because I
Right.
don't know how much of it to eat.
So did you feel like you were at that time eating the right kind of foods
Mm.
because you felt like you were getting a little bit of protein in through there, but obviously just not enough at that time?
Yeah, not enough of the right foods. I just thought if I did, yeah, ate too much of it, I would potentially gain weight, and I didn't want
Mm.
to see the scale go up because that's quite scary. But that's actually ultimately what you want to happen. But I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah, it's a very tough position. It's like you're aiming. So correct me if I'm wrong. Like back then, you were aiming for that kind of like lean, athletic physique.
Definitely, yeah.
You weren't obviously doing the type of training that was required to get that lean,
Mhm.
athletic physique.
Mhm.
Didn't have that much muscle mass. You were
No.
constantly doing a lot of kind of cardio, a lot of calorie burning,
Yes.
not really fueling up.
Yeah.
But it's a very hard thing to do because it's a literally like, and we'll talk about this in terms of what actually happened. It's a complete chalk and cheese, black and white reversal of what you were doing to actually what needed to be done to essentially get to where you are today and to get on
Yes.
stage for the first time. Let's talk
Definitely.
about that. Let's talk about that transition. Like, when was it? Was it a slow transition in terms of like you just started lifting weights and still doing a little bit of cardio, and then you started to notice your appetite was increasing when you actually started to eat more? You actually started to get a better physique, or was it quite a shock moment where it's like, no, I need to completely transform what I'm currently doing in terms of training and nutrition?
It was a bit of both, to be honest. I mean, I did have when I started working with a personal trainer in the gym, we kind of did some check-in photos, and at that point, when I actually saw myself standing in front of a camera taking these images of myself, I was actually quite shocked at how kind of lean and tiny I was at the time, and I don't think I actually realized that until I started really looking at myself in these pictures. I didn't actually realize myself how small and tiny I was. And at that point, I really needed to change something. It was definitely switching my mindset to fueling myself and eating more and lifting weights rather than doing 2 hours of cardio every morning and not eating. So once I started kind of doing that in the gym and lifting the weights and eating more, then that's when I started to see positive changes. And at that point, I needed to go down that direction rather than the cardio.
100%. Was it quite an immediate result? Did you start to see these things kind of within the first weeks and the months?
I say within a couple of months, I started seeing some changes for sure. Initially, I didn't like the thought of the scale going up at all. And
did the scale go up? Can I ask?
The scale
Quickly,
did go up.
rapidly?
Yeah.
What are we talking?
I mean, the scale initially didn't go up, I'd say, for a couple of months because I was under eating so much that I feel like my body was just like almost like absorbing all the food because it was like, thank you so much. This is just what I wanted. But so my weight didn't actually budge for quite a while. But then when it did, I had so much more energy. I just felt better. I felt like I could actually lift more weights, and I saw massive improvement once I started doing that.
100%. So probably you didn't. Did you actually struggle through that period when you started to see the weight creep up, or was it just because you were noticing all this energy and probably feeling a little bit more conditioned and leaner and all these positive benefits? Did you even struggle? Was it just like, well, this is part of the process?
Initially, yes, because I had always been a certain weight and I thought this is what I need to be and this is my comfortable weight. So when I started seeing changes, I was like, I'm not sure, I'm a different weight now. Is that a bad thing? Is it a good thing? So initially, yes, I didn't like it at all, but things like my clothes started fitting better. I actually looked nicer in clothes. Like clothes used to just hang off me. I hardly even fitted into a size 6 dress. It would just completely hang off me, and I didn't like that feeling. So as soon as I kind of started filling out these dresses in the right places, that was a real confidence boost for me.
Can I ask you a little bit more of a personal question? At that time, was anyone concerned about you, or did anyone say anything in terms of your family or anything?
So yeah, my mum was really concerned about me. She would never say anything to me because I don't think she wanted to upset me, because she knew how I was so into my fitness, and I was very healthy with kind of healthy with going to the gym every morning, but the way I was fueling myself was not healthy at all. I just don't think she wanted to kind of upset me by saying something. I think at the time as well, I was doing my studies at uni, so a lot of people kind of put it down to that. They kind of thought, oh, she might be under eating because she's stressed from uni and things like that, but nothing kind of to do with my lifestyle and like how I ate and everything like that.
Was your health ever at risk, or was it just more kind of like the aesthetic side of things?
No, never. It was just kind of
you were always pretty healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on to competing side of things. When did that itch first come up? When did you start thinking about competing?
I kind of started following a few girls on social media that had competed. And
mention any names?
I remember following Kirsty Joanna, who was actually one of your clients. Yeah, she was a real...
Now in the IFBB?
Yes, she looks amazing. So
yeah, she looks great.
Yeah, she was a real... really nice inspiration for me at the beginning. And I know she also had a dance background as well, which actually leads me on to my dance background was very similar to kind of how the competitions, the bodybuilder competitions with the fake tan and the outfits and the glitz and the glamour, it was very similar to that. So I just thought the discipline I had when I did that is very similar to kind of transitioning into something in bodybuilding.
And was that something that really kind of lit your fire in terms of, was it to you, I want to be on stage and I want to compete? Or was it like, this looks like a new goal that I can aim for that's kind of in line with my values around training now?
Yeah, it was both. I mean, I really admired how, particularly the bikini category, how the girls looked. And that has always been like a goal of mine, to kind of transition my body into looking something like that, but also the challenge for me to do that for myself. And also I'm such a competitive person. I just thought having that competitive side to me along with challenging my body is something that I really want to do.
It comes with a lot of different directions in terms of competing, right? Which you found out. Take us through that initiation in terms of when you decided to compete. And then obviously you reached out to me back in, I think around about November or December 2022 with a clear goal of getting on stage? I think, WBFF, obviously, probably because I think Kirsty back then, she was still competing with the WBFF. Take me back to that moment in time through there when you reached out, we had a conversation. Like, how did that feel, and how does, run me through that?
Yeah, I've been following your social media. I'd seen like you'd competed, you'd helped a lot of girls step on stage, and I just had been thinking for a long time, like, this is something I really, really want to do. And if I don't do it now, then when am I going to do it? So yeah, I booked the call with you, which was, yeah, the kind of the best thing that I've done, really. It's kind of, I've always really wanted to do it. So yeah, it's kind of, I was just so excited to get started, because I was like, that could be me up on stage. I just want to get ahead and get going. So yeah.
And you'd already, obviously, you had a lot of progress since kind of like back in the photos from when you were in your Cardio Bunny days to where you were when we first started. But obviously, moving into competing and looking at step on stage, that's another step forward, quite a few steps forward. So how was it when we spoke that, in terms of, because I think we believed, it was going to be a good year. It was going to be a good kind of like 6 to 8 months in terms of structural phase. We started it, I believe, in December 2022. Didn't get on stage until November 2023. How was that process? I guess it was just a continuation of maybe what you were already doing, just a little bit more in line with, pushing you through to actually competing, getting on stage.
I was actually quite surprised, because at the beginning, I remember messaging you like, is there anything else I need to do? Because I was actually doing almost less, but the results, you were saying to me less is more. And I was like, okay, I need to get on board with this, because I used to do like 2.5 hours in the gym, and now I'm doing a leg session, I'm in and out in an hour. And I kind of had to get used to that, because I just didn't feel like, I was having a very good session, but I just felt like I needed to do more, because I was so used to being in the gym for 2.5 hours doing 10 exercises, and that's the way you got results. But really, it was the complete opposite. Initially, I was actually quite shocked at how little time I was in the gym to begin with in the structural phase. Obviously, that does change when you're kind of cutting, but particularly in the structural phase, it's definitely more about less is more, for sure.
Less is more. Intensity is the game. Eating outside, recovery is a protocol. Obviously, recovery is very important through structural and obviously through the whole part of peak prep. It actually gets a lot more important, and something we need to focus on, obviously, through the peak prep side of things when calories are getting a little bit lower. Talk us through that kind of transition in terms of going from actually starting up. Less is more. Less volume probably, but more intensity in terms of training, moving through. Where do things move in terms of the food kind of things? Like, were you eating quite similar, or did we get you on higher calories? Were you still comfortable with that transition?
Yeah. So, definitely put on high calories, just knowing, just someone telling me this is what these are the guidelines, these are the macros you need to have for your training. And that was like, okay, right, I need to eat this. I need to follow these macros. I need to follow these calories in order to help my body progress. And that really helped me just increase the food that I was already eating, because I was already eating relatively healthy anyway, all the kind of the right foods, but it's just kind of the quantity. So that really gave me a clear direction of, right, you need to have, more of this and more of this, and that will help you.
Yeah, 100%. As I said, I'm sure you've heard me, because you've been with us for 3 years now. In terms of what I always say is, everyone knows how to eat healthy. Everyone knows kind of what healthy eating is, but there's quite a big difference in terms of eating healthy and then eating in accordance with your goal, right?
Yeah.
And when you are obviously looking, and one of the biggest struggles is, and we've spoken about this before, and I think you did struggle with it, but from my stands, you took it on very well in terms of, we will talk about your first competition, obviously going back into a structural building, almost say 18 months before you stepped on stage in the FMG London show, that, gaining weight from losing your stage physique, gaining weight, but to still a healthy standpoint. Before we talk about that, run me through what it was like in your first competition experience with the WBFF.
Prior to competing with them, I actually went to watch WBFF show, and also I went to watch Pure Elite show as well. I really kind of wanted to make sure I knew what I was getting myself into. I kind of knew anyway from just social media and talking to girls and kind of asking them about their experience. So, and obviously having you as a coach, you're very experienced within the federation. So I kind of almost knew what to expect before I even stepped on stage. stage. I had a posing coach, and I was working with Audrey, and she was very knowledgeable about the WBFF, and we would have long chats about it. And during our training together, we would do mock shows, and so I almost felt like I had done a show before I even got there. So I felt very prepared going into the show and kind of knowing what to expect from it. So yeah, that certainly really helped. Definitely go and watch a show before you do one,
100%.
just so you know how it runs and you get a feel for the atmosphere and how the day runs and things like that.
How is it transitioning in from structural phase into peak prep? Did you struggle at all during the peak prep in your first show?
Not really, to be honest. Yeah, I loved every phase. I love the structural phase and I love the peak prep. You've really got to switch your mindset between each one, but I find that very easy to do that. So in a structural phase, it's very much you're eating to lift and you need to fuel your workouts and focus on recovery and sleep, whereas peak prep is very much about ticking the boxes, switching your mindset to I'm not hungry when it gets to that stage. So yeah, each phase serves a purpose, and I like both of them equally, as they're both rewarding.
Do you still have that same enjoyment of both phases now after your first competition, now after your second competition?
Definitely, yes. Yeah, I think initially it's hard when you come out of such a lean state. After the competition, it's initially quite difficult to transition into a structural phase. But I say about 8 weeks post-show, you're almost ready to kind of eat more food and get into that structural phase. You're kind of ready to kind of take on, you're ready for that energy and ready to have more food at that point. But initially, it's hard.
How did it feel to get on stage for the first time with the WBFF? How did that feel in that time? Does that walk out and that first entrance to the stage?
I absolutely loved it. It did really take me back to stepping on stage as a young girl on the dance floor, and my adrenaline was through the roof. I absolutely loved it. I had my friends and family there supporting me. I could hear them calling my name, and it was such a good experience. And I came off just feeling like, wow, like, what have I just done? And it was unreal. It was such a good experience. I had such a great time on stage, but it just went so fast.
Yeah, it does. Did you have any preconceptions in terms of, like, obviously everyone wants to win, right? But did you have it in your mind that there was a possibility?
Not really, to be honest. I think I was so overwhelmed by the day and it went so quickly. I just kind of didn't really have time to even think how I was going to do. I was kind of just trying to really enjoy the day and be in the moment. So yeah, to have my pro card on my first competition was just the cherry on top, to be honest. And yeah, I could not sleep that night at all. So yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, really good.
Absolute cherry on top. Yeah, I mean, it's the dream, right? To step on stage and get a pro card in your first show. Doesn't always happen, but you look fantastic. Like, you worked like an absolute fucking trooper all the way through. As I said before, I was going to leave this at the end. In terms of an athlete that's stepped into that focus and stepped into that ability to just listen and interpret and act and perform, it's it's always been great to work with you, and obviously looking forward to the future as well. But coming out of that, the normal kind of transition from show to then moving into a kind of structural phase, it's quite important during that time to get an idea of taking the pressure off, obviously from peak prep, but then immediately or as soon as trying to get a focus in terms of creating vision and setting a plan in terms of not only during the reversal, but something a little bit longer in terms of where do you want to take this. When you came off stage, when you first got your pro card, was it almost kind of a definite, it's like, right, I want to get on stage. I want to do this again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Even though I'd won and got my pro card, I was kind of like, what's my feedback? I want to do better. I want to be even better next time. So I've kind of straight into what can I do more? How can I be better than this show? So I was very eager to definitely do another competition, but ensure that I would make the right improvements for that pro show, because going into a pro show, it's another level. So I wanted to not rush into it, but ensure that I had a very good structural phase to make sure that I was ready for that pro stage. But yeah, really eager to compete again for sure.
And the feedback, and I don't think we actually got too much feedback in terms of judges, because it wasn't really that much back then. But obviously it was pretty clear in terms of what we need to do. And it was just very much you got on stage, you've made fantastic amount of progress in that last year. You'd made a lot of progress in the past 5 years. Now it just needed to be continued. Like you had a great aesthetic physique. It just needed to be more aesthetic in terms of like glutes, lower body, waist to hip ratio, waist to shoulder ratio. It just had to be more muscle mass, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So talk us through that build phase. And I think we initially had an idea. Did we ever have an idea to compete in 2024, or was it always to compete in 2025?
I think because FMG was kind of on the rise,
Right. Yeah. That transitional phase in 2023. Yeah.
Definitely. I think potentially if WBFF were maybe doing another London show, I probably might have gone for that. But because of the FMG on the rise and it becoming very popular, I kind of wanted to kind of hold out and see kind of how that was going to progress and then make a decision based on that. But I knew going into a pro show I really wanted to make some solid improvements before stepping on stage again, and that meant taking some more time out. So I wasn't in the stages is always going to be there, so I wasn't in a rush to kind of quickly get on stage again. But with the transition with the WBFF and FMG, I really wanted to kind of hold out first and see where that was going to go with that.
See how, because obviously 2024 was essentially the first London show, which I believe you went to. Did you go to that?
Yes. I went to watch it because I had my eyes to do the FMG London show, so I definitely wanted to go and watch it and get a feel for kind of how the show ran and everything like that before I competed with them. And when I went to watch it, I thought, I'm going to be up
fire up a little bit.
Definitely.
Talk us through the build phase between obviously coming out reversal into a structural phase again, and essentially that was kind of like beginning of 2024. And then from 2024 until around about, I think, April 2025, when we started to drop into peak prep. Talk about that phase. Just kind of summarize it in terms of like physically and mentally. Was it challenging at all? Was it just progressive? Was it very similar to the last phase?
I think it was slightly more challenging because I was kind of heavier at this point, and I thought I'm actually going to be even heavier for going into this next phase. But mentally that's quite tough because your clothes kind of don't start fitting you anymore, that clothes that you worn in the past don't start fitting you anymore. But it's about embracing that and knowing that these are good improvements,
necessary improvements.
So,
but in reality, I know it may have felt like it, and it's obviously a little bit different from obviously, going back to the last time you probably felt thin or lean was kind of like back before you started resistance training. Obviously, when you started resistance training, you start to get more fit, you start to get more muscle, you start to get like overall better shape. Then going into your first, obviously, peak prep into competition, super exciting. Generally, no one really struggles that much in terms of their first peak prep, just because it's so rewarding and it's very visceral and it's very tangible because you're seeing your body change every day. You're like, oh my God, I'm leaner. I can start to see these shoulders, legs. So the motivation is always there to be pretty stringent. It's that normally that first time, and you transitioned really well, actually. I was very impressed. Now, part of that, I do believe, obviously, because you did very well. When you obviously win a pro card in your first show, it's incredibly motivating to then literally just set your mind on fire in terms of, right, back to work. I know what I would need to achieve. I've got my feedback and I can take it through to the next level. I think that has obviously helped a lot when you do very well in the show. I know people do suffer when they go into that peak prep scenario. They go through week by week, they see their physique change, they get on stage, they don't do as well as they feel like they should have done, and it's very much like everything that you've been aiming for 16, 18, 20 weeks is suddenly gone. And you're like, well, and then that's when people start to kind of turn to food, and that's when it gets a little bit out of control, and that's when the weight starts to pile on. I didn't see that with you, obviously, because you handled that, well, from a coach's perspective, very well. And again, you were very, you never went dark. You were very, attentive. You were always checking in, like, it was great to see. Let's move on now until the second show. Did you have any, which was 2025, just gone, August this year at the at Troxy Theatre, a different league in terms of it was busier? You're now into the pro leagues, and there's a big difference between amateur and pro. You put in the work, you got the result, you looked great on stage. Did you go in to the FMG show with any kind of preconceptions? Were you a little bit more, because obviously getting a pro card in your first show, did you go into with any kind of preconceptions in terms of where you might place?
Not really. I mean, definitely as a pro, I felt a lot more pressure because you have this pro status. You feel like you need to show that you are now, show that you are a pro on stage, which we did, but you just feel that extra pressure. And I think from winning your first comp as well, you have even more of a pressure to do even better because you placed higher. So yeah, definitely I felt like there was more pressure going into a pro show for sure. In terms of being prepared, I wasn't worried at all. I had my bikini booked in, I had my tan booked in. Obviously, we had all of our training and protocols planned out. So feeling prepared in that sense wasn't a worry at all. I'd been to the venue before, to the host hotel before for WBFF. So in terms of kind of like the background to it, I felt very calm and chilled and prepared for that. But in terms of my performance kind of expectations from other people, I felt quite a bit of pressure. I felt like I needed to do well. And people were saying like, oh, you look amazing and you're going to do so well. And I was like, okay, I really need to do well now. So yeah, there was a bit more pressure this time for sure.
And how was it in terms of getting on stage, walking on stage, the whole kind of like the time in terms of the whole day, in terms of competing day, compared to 2 years prior when you stepped out on stage in the WBFF?
I feel like the day was a lot more well planned and stress free, and we weren't rushed onto stage. And there was a lot of downtime backstage to chill and prepare to go on stage and kind of have your food and put your feet up. The day was run a lot more smoothly and better, and it was you didn't feel as stressed kind of getting ready to go on stage. It was a very easy, well run day.
Okay. And talk me through walking out for the first time on stage in front of that big crowd. How did it feel? Better? Worse? More nervous? More expectation?
No, I felt really confident, to be honest. I had my posing coach Andrea. He was amazing. So he built us a routine that I felt really confident with.
Great.
And I'd started my posing practice in January, so I prepared my routine well in advance. And he really kind of chose movements for me that suited my body and made me feel confident on stage. So it goes so quickly on stage, you just don't even have time to think about anything else. And I loved it. It was so much fun. It's weird because the loud music is playing, but I cannot actually remember what song I walked out to. Everything, you kind of almost go a bit deaf because you're just kind of so overwhelmed by the lights and everything like that you don't even remember kind of what song you walked out onto. Beforehand, backstage, you're like, you're listening to the music and you're getting pumped up to it. But when you actually walk on stage, I cannot tell you what song I walked out onto.
Do you feel it's kind of almost in flow state, like you're just going through the motions of your posing, your transition?
Yeah, definitely, because there's so much to think about when you're, have I held my abs? Have I, arched my back properly? Have I, put my arm in the right place? And there's so many other things to think about that. Yeah, it's kind of, you're just in that zone then.
So I know you didn't go in, with any expectations, but it definitely sounds like you felt a lot of pressure. Not so much a bad amount of pressure in terms of, it's just like, you had people not so much expecting, but I felt like you felt like you'd got your pro card, I think, at your first show. So expectations on you were to do well in this show as well, right?
Yeah.
So,
and I think I put that pressure on myself as well. Like, I was like, I want to do really well. You manifest having the crown on your head. Like, of course you do. Like, you want to win, and you manifest that, and you put a lot of pressure on yourself to win or to get that top 3. So I did put a lot of pressure on myself before the competition as well.
And how did it feel in terms of getting the result?
So initially on stage, I was so pleased for all the other competitors. I mean, our Corey, TeamTBC, she placed first. So, it was amazing to see her do so well. And, it was I had such a great day. So initially I was so happy. But as soon as I got off that stage and I was backstage again, I was like, what can I do to do better? What's my feedback? Let's get going. I kind of felt like, right, we need to put the pedal on, let's go. Because I didn't get where I wanted to.
So initially, wasn't really much kind of like, you weren't too upset. It was just almost like kind of like lit the fire again in terms of creating even more vision in terms of what you wanted to achieve.
Definitely, yeah. it was
Okay.
definitely kind of, that's really kind of pushed me up the backside. What am I doing now? I need to, yeah, I want my feedback and let's get going.
Okay.
It was kind of the next day,
Yeah.
that's when it all came crashing down.
So
So,
walk me through that, turning up to the team shoot. Obviously we spoke, I think we spoke in the evening of the show briefly.
mm,
And then obviously I saw you on the day of the team shoot when we had the team shoot. And I could tell you were
mm.
you're holding back. Walk us through kind of that moment. Where were the emotions coming from?
Yeah, so if I compare it to my first show, I remember my first show was my adrenaline was through the roof. I just won. I didn't sleep that night at all. I was up, like feeling amazing. I was like, wow, I can't believe what just happened. This show, I went straight to sleep, slept like a baby, was exhausted, just went straight to sleep. I woke up and my partner was with me and I just burst into tears. I just was so, I just felt so disappointed and I was like, I've let you down. I've not done my best. What have I done? Like, why didn't the result go the way I wanted to? And I honestly did not want to go to the team shoot that day. I just felt like I'd not done anyone proud and I just felt so disappointed in myself. I just didn't want to be in front of anyone because I just felt like I'd let everyone down in
Yeah.
a way. He was like, no, you need to go. You need to go and talk to Tom. It will make you feel so much better. And, you know, you need to do this because it's what you had planned. You know, if you won, you'd be going. Even if you didn't win, you still need to go. So, you know, do go. And I did. And I'm so glad I did go in the end because it was so great to speak to you and almost just let out all that emotion that I'd built up. And I just felt like, yeah, just so disappointed in myself. But talking to you and Laura really helped kind of change my thought of why I was feeling like that.
Yeah, because honestly, Catherine, that day you were amongst world champions, regional champions, Corey, who just won. They've all been exactly where you are.
Mm,
They haven't had a string of wins. They've had very disappointing moments. They've had times where they feel like they should have done a lot better and everyone else was like almost saying like, how do you not get this? Like everyone's been through that. But I think it's that you are always going to face it as a competitor. You are always going to face, I wouldn't say even a loss because it definitely wasn't a loss compared, you know,
yeah,
you saw the amount, not only the amount of bikini competitors, but the standard
yeah,
of the girls on stage. And obviously with FMG being very more physique focused, you
yeah,
know, even placing where you did is a absolute fucking legendary in
yeah,
your first pro show.
yeah.
Did that emotion literally come on directly when you woke up in the morning, or did you feel it building overnight, or was it just you were so tired that you just kind of passed out?
It was kind of like when I went to dinner post show, that's when it kind of was like hit me because I was like, I didn't even kind of want to have a post show meal that night. I didn't even want to kind of, I know that sounds really bad, but almost celebrate it. I just didn't honestly feel like I deserved that post show meal in a way because I hadn't got to where I wanted to. So it kind of definitely sunk in that night. And then, yeah, in the morning, it really hit in for sure.
And how long did that last? Like, was it just a day and like, right, refocus, reset? You know, I feel, you know, obviously when you're surrounded by the rest of the team
Yeah.
and, you know, obviously showing their support and giving you, you know, telling you things as more experienced athletes, like, was it just a day or did you feel that lasted for a little bit of time before you actually got back on track?
I feel like it lasted. I mean, the photo shoot really helped because it was just talking to other girls, and you know, some girls had the same experience as me, and it was kind of nice to share in how we, you know, talk about how we felt on the day. And then I remember we booked like an action call for the following week, and I think that was really important to do that because I felt like we had already addressed what had happened, and we were going to make a plan the following week on how we were going to, you know, move forward. So
100%.
that really helped with my mindset, knowing that we had a plan kind of to make me progress and make me feel better already
Yeah.
because
I mean, you need that vision, you need that structure. And, you know, for someone who's been so goal focused, pretty much since the start of your training, I think even back in the cardio bunny days, you know,
yeah,
you are someone that obviously responds very well, as all do the team, with not only understanding what you need to do in the next couple of weeks, couple of months, but obviously backtracking from the end goal, which is, I think we've spoken about it. What is the next step? What is the next goal?
So yeah, I definitely want to compete again for sure. The fire in my belly is there for sure. So yeah, now is the time to make those structural changes, and we're really focusing on lower glute and hamstring development, as that was my feedback from the WBFF, so from the FMG, sorry, and the WBFF, but definitely from the FMG for sure. So yeah, lower days are a killer at the minute,
Yes.
but they're great. So yeah, fully enjoying this structural phase, and yeah, for sure. I think we're going to spend probably about 6 months in this phase before we go into potentially the FMG for August 2026.
Yeah. And before we kind of wrap up, what has been the biggest lesson you've taken away from the whole journey in terms of competing? Let me phrase it a little bit differently, because I think it may help you answer the question. If you could speak to the Catherine back to when you were kind of making that transition from cardio bunny to potential, and then starting to think about competing, if you could tell her 3 things that would massively help her along the initial stage of that journey, what would they be?
Don't be afraid of gaining weight. For sure.
Important one.
Yeah, just don't be afraid to fuel yourself and to eat more, because that's going to, in the long run, help you and give you more energy and make you look that, I don't know what to say.
What would be like, okay, let's another question for you. If you were giving advice from, because it seems like, you did it very well in terms of your lead up into your first show, but for first time competitors, what would you say is the top 2 or 3 things that they need to think about and organize before their first competition in terms of like the final, so they're not kind of over stressed in the last week?
Make sure you're for sure starting your posing at least a year to 6 months out.
Massive.
Because posing is probably one of the hardest things that you're going to do before stepping on stage. So yeah, definitely find yourself a great posing coach and start early, at least a year or 6 months. Book your hair and makeup in early for sure. Just kind of competing is really quite expensive, so the more you book out, the more you book prior to the event date, is going to help you spread the cost out of things as well.
100%.
So book your tan and ensure that the time is good as well. Just book everything in advance for yourself. And also spend time building in a structural phase, because the last thing you want, and for me especially, is I don't want to step on stage if I don't feel like I've made any improvements from my last show. So spend that time building, because you can compete at any time and there's shows throughout the year all the time. So make sure you spend that time building before you step on stage again, because that is definitely something that scares me, is not kind of progressing on or beating my last package. Basically, that is my goal, to step on stage and beat my last package. That's
100%.
my aim for every competition. And we did that for FMG as well. I remember 4 weeks out, I was sending comparison pictures to you saying, look at me this year compared to me this year. My leg development was absolutely insane, like the amount of mass that I put on my leg. And at that point, I felt like we'd already won even before I'd stepped on the FMG stage. So even if you don't win that competition, you've always just, and this is something that you've really kind of drilled into my head, like, you didn't win, but look at the package that you brought compared to WBFF to FMG. And that really helped me kind of get over that post-show blues and not winning. Like you said, Catherine, like, look at your package from WBFF to FMG. And when I looked at the differences, like, that really helped me with kind of overcoming that, that feeling of not winning and, not placing where I wanted to. And that really has pushed me now into my next show for sure. Like, I know we're gonna completely smash out the package that I've brought this year for sure, but that's
100%.
that really helped me.
Yeah, because that is when physiques are built. They are built during the structural phase. The peak prep, as you know, for a natural athlete, is the definition, the defining, like putting the extra layers, putting the icing on the cake. You will, it's so important. And your journey is an absolute testament to what prep actually is. When people think about prep, they're like, oh, 12, 16 weeks before competition, I can lean out a little bit and get to stage. No, prep is a combination of everything. It is your structural phase. It is your pre-prep. It is your peak prep. It is your reversal. It's the whole process through. And if we look at your prep in terms of from the end of 2022 up until currently now competing next year, mid-August next year in 2026, it does take time, as we know, to build a physique, both naturally and assisted. But you need to give it that time in the structural phase. It's a very important process because you will not beat, and as I said, you are testament to this, you will not bring and improve on your package unless you really focus through that structural phase, 100%. But here's to 2026, and here's to another successful structural phase over this next 6 months before we start our peak prep into the next FMG show. But Catherine, thank you for joining us. Honestly, it's been I know both the team, both the community and everyone listening to this on YouTube is going to benefit from this. Any lasting thoughts that you want to share?
I think if you want to, every champion needs to fail. So if you've been a champion, you've failed at some point, and this was my setback, but I'm ready to bring it in for next year for sure.
100%. Definitely wouldn't call it a failure. But one important point that Catherine did make is that competing it's a self journey. It can be a selfish journey. It's often a selfless journey, but competing is a time where the sole aim should be what Catherine did, to beat the package that you brought last time. If you can do that, you can't control the other variables. You can't control who's going to compete. You can't control, you can control the day you're going to compete, but you don't know who's going to be on stage. You don't know who the judges are going to be. What you can control is everything that you do, from stepping off the stage, putting in that work, putting that groundwork through the structural phase, and building a physique that's going to be undeniable the next time you step on stage. Okay? But Catherine, thank you once again. And we're looking forward to seeing your return in 2026.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.